Going live now. Awesome. Wow, YouTube is responding really quick. Never had that before. Hello everyone. Okay, I'm gonna quickly post the comment, pin it. If anyone ever has any questions, they can just tag me and I can start the music. Perfect. So, after a week of holiday, I'm back and getting ready to do the last shading touches for Snow. I don't actually think there's much left to be done. I did one thing in between streams. I darkened his eyes a little bit more and made the blue a bit deeper. It's not as cyan. And I made them metallic anyway. I think I decided against it in the previous stream, but I think it actually gives it more of a look like an actual iris looks like. It gives it this shine. And then with the cornea, there's a bit of a bug right now over here with the cornea, but if I just add a little render window over here, go to cycles, it looks really nice. I deepened the model a bit more. Like if I go in here, there's a shape key right over here for a deeper eye, this one. And the reason why I actually make this model a bit deeper is, so if I go to render it, is so this shimmer, this shine that comes through here, like the lower side catches the light, that it only happens on the lower side and the upper side can be a bit more in shadow. If I don't have this, then everything overall catches a lot of light. That's something I did wrong on Rain. I would like to fix that at some point. But yeah, now it looks better. So now, with the cornea enabled, I can like rotate around it. The cornea is bending the light so that we always see the pupil in the middle. I made the fake eye highlights a little bit smaller. And yeah, overall I think this is actually looking not that bad in terms of the eyes. So what I really want to focus on in this stream is all the leftover to-dos. I want to go back to the skin shading and texturing a bit, add a bit more detail and a bit more variation. And also, most importantly, a bit of subsurface scattering, because that will just make it look more like skin. And then, if we look over here, the hair still has no shading. Same thing for the inner mouth. So I would like to add that as well. Then the hands still need a little bit more care, and then eventually the shoes also still need a shading update. Right now they are using the old textures from Rain and they're quite bad. But that shouldn't be too much work. And then, hold on, I'm actually disabling the corneas again. They cause a bit of weirdness in cycles. And then the last thing is I want to put him into a pose. Essentially like his original, like his original sculpt. If I enable that one again, this one. I think the difference is already pretty striking. I want to put him back into this pose and make some turntables, a little bit of lighting setup, and then like properly render and present him. So that would be awesome. Well, then I'll just get more into it. And again, if any of you have any questions, you can just tag me. We can have this as a bit of a, well, not quite a Q&A, but I'm happy to talk about it. Anything related to this project. But yeah. First thing first, I have this diffuse texture over here, so that's nice. The lips need a bit more detail. And I would like to actually go over this again a bit one by one. Something weird happening with the lips. Right. That's it. Yeah, I think it's fine. Huh. Ooh, that's interesting. It's actually adding more dark skin over here on the lower lips. Oh wait, it's supposed to cancel it out. Yeah, I think I know how to fix this. So I go into Vertex Paint and I target the vertex color darker. There we go. Now that I'm painting this out, the lower lips are getting less of this dark rim. It's just a tiny touch, but I noticed it a lot. See your first question. Use even works over here. Like if I plug this in, well, what I could do is I could use the vertex group for lips. Nice. Okay, perfect. Then I'll just do this. Invert. I want to affect these two separately. Like, the lips have a very different color from the skin. So I want to get this more towards a sort of like reddish orange. Oof. That's extreme. I'll just try this. I'll adjust it in a moment, but if I plug this into the subsurface color, and then I crank up the subsurface scattering, then we should see some results. I noticed that there's a new feature in Blender in the node editor. If I hold Ctrl-Alt and right-click, I can mute a connection between two nodes instead of deleting it. So the typical shortcuts are Shift, right-click, drag to make like this extra socket, and Control, right-click, drag to just kill the connection, but Control-Alt, right-click, drag will just mute it. Doing it again will unmute it. So now, if I make this like a darker color, I can maybe see the effect of the subsurface scattering a bit more. Like, the more I turn it up, you can see the more waxy it becomes. I'll just open the mouth for this. I think that's actually a nice thing. So in terms of the, hold on. Wait, I'm actually gonna open up Firefox, just a browser, because I actually want to fact check. So SSS subdermal textures, because I think they're actually meant to be quite more extreme in the red. No, I think no, this is actually already fine. So this is like typically the texture that is used as an influence for the color of the, like this sort of light that's coming from within. So I think that's already fine, the one that I chose. If anything, it could be not more saturated, but a bit lighter. Basically. And also just a bit more towards red. Like that. I think that's fine. And then I'm gonna crank it all the way back to the bottom. Okay. Well, now I need to define where more or less subsurface scattering is going to happen. And I think for that I'm again going to make a vertex color. So I'm just going to call this col_SSS. And I'm going to put it in here. I could again like use I could use textures for this and paint them, but it's so simple. I don't need that much resolution for it. And then I'm also gonna plug this into a map range. Oh, holy shit. No, 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 not in there. Oops. Over, come on, in here. Because, let's go into Vertex Paint. Let's say I'm painting the ears white. Like that. Because they are supposed to have a lot of subsurface scattering. They are, even though they're pretty thick, they should appear like real ears that are actually pretty thin, and a lot of light is coming through them. So that's the sort of effect that I would like to provoke. There we go. I can like paint this out a bit more around the ears. Like that. A bit less over here. And a bit less over here. Kind of like this. I'm going to use this as a test. And you can see how much subsurface scattering is happening here. It's of course a bit extreme. So I'm going to change that. But I would like to get a better test environment for this. Maybe if I change the HDRI, rotate it around. Hold on. So it's somewhat backlit. That's what I want to get. Actually, what I want to do is, let's just insert some lights manually. Not spotlights, area lights. One from behind, like that. I also see some more questions, sorry. Someone asks, I'm working on a non-human character and having trouble starting out. Do you have any recommended resources? Non-human character. I'm not sure. Depends on what you're having trouble with. I think there's some... Man, I'm thinking of some old courses by CG Cookie. They had some really nice stuff. But, to be honest, I'm not sure right now what could be some really good resources. I don't know. I mean, we have some stuff on the Blender Cloud, but I'm not sure what you're exactly looking for. Anyway. So, this is the sort of like test setup that I would like to have. With a light shining directly from behind. So, of course, this light is supposed to be pretty strong. Let's make it 50. Oh. It was actually not using the light. Oops. Like that. Okay, that's kind of what I want. Now the reason why I use this map range node is because then I can define what is going to be the minimum and maximum value. I want the mask to be just black and white, but I want to have a bit more control over what does the black mean, what does the white mean. So white in this case is like about 0.06 value in subsurface scattering, and the minimum is going to be 0.02. Let's try that. Well, let's increase the max a lot. There we go. So now it actually works. It's not as prominent from this side. You can see it, but it's still not very bright, the light shining through. But from this side, you can really see it. And that's the intended effect. Of course, in Eevee, it's going to look different because it's screen-based. But here, I'm going to continue for now. So, Vertex Paint. Okay, so I'm gonna tweak this a bit more. I want the earlobe to shine a bit more, like that. And this part up here, as well as here. And then also a bit more on the tragus, which makes sense. Basically, any part that that is significantly just fleshy or very thin. I'm also going to use the blur brush a bit on this because I'm using Vertex colors, so I don't have a lot of resolution to work with. Blurring it is going to avoid this sort of like pixelated look a bit, like that. Okay, and then same thing on the nose. That's also a bit of a fleshy area. So the nose bridge, a bit less so, but the wings, the tip, all of this part, this is significantly more fleshy. And then towards the inner nose, it can wear off because not a lot of light is reaching that anyway. Like that. A bit more over here, a bit less on the bridge. Still quite a bit. And then also on the eyelids, because the eyelids are a very thin bit of flesh. A lot of light would realistically come through this. I mean, that's also what you're noticing. If you close your eyes, it's still having that like bright reddish color. So I'm gonna like paint this in a bit over here. And then of course also the lips. So they also get quite a bit of subsurface scattering. Also the cheeks, just a little bit, but mainly the lips. They are pretty thin. Like that. The brows and the forehead less so, because they are really close to the skull. Anything like also the cheekbones, anything that would be kind of where the light that's passing through would be obscured by bone, less light would actually come through. So that's kind of the logic that you can go with. Same with the jaw. There's a lot of bone here, so the light wouldn't actually be able to pass through. But the cheeks, there's actually no bones there. I'm not sure right now how well light passes through muscle tissue, so that's probably also something that comes into effect. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm going with. So, so yeah, and then also the neck can take a little bit more, like over here, and then I can blur this a lot, like that. This is one of the reasons why I'm actually using Vertex colors way more than texture painting, because blurring and smearing is much more of an option. The performance on the blur brush is pretty bad in texture paint mode, and if anything, it becomes much more useful once you actually paint a texture in the image editor, not so much in the 3D viewport. It's a bit sad. Also, I should paint the inner side over here. A bit like that. What I could also do is I could press Alt-B to make a clipping mask. And then it's going to only show what's inside of the clipping masks, and then I can see this much better, and also paint in here. And then blur it like that. So if we ever see the inner mouth, realistically, there would be light passing through here. Okay, then let's just do this. Now I can paint inside here, so the inner side of the lips would also get a lot of light, and then also the cheeks again. Not so much over here. I'm speeding through this a little bit more, or at least I'm trying to, because to be honest, I've been streaming for a while, working on this character from week to week. And it would be really nice to finish him, publish all the files, share everything, and soon the movie will be done, Sprite Fright. So it would be nice if I could pass this on to someone else, to like Matt for rigging, Demeter or rigger, and just be done with it, move on to something else. I've been basically working on this character for over a year, on and off. But he should be done by now. Okay, let's just test this. So I can go into Eevee, and you can already see this has a really nice effect over here. I can like Control Alt right click, drag to mute the connection, and you can immediately see the fleshy quality that it gains. And if I go to cycles, it still works quite well on the ear, but I'm gonna use the HDRI again. And it's really quite nice. So let's rotate this around. So the light is gonna come more from the side over here. And now we can observe how it's shining through the mouth, and the lips, and the nose. So this is actually working quite well. The only thing that doesn't work is it's apparently darkening the upper lip over here because of this. because the subdermal color is also darkened. That's not great. To be honest, what I would like to do is let's see. Let's see. A lot of these influences that are used here, I could just remove them. Like, I'm gonna Control-Shift-D duplicate this one right here. I'm gonna put a frame on this. So this is going to be the subsurface scattering. I'm gonna also name the frame SSS. I hope you can see this well. I also see another question. Are you just using a mouse for this? I'm actually using a pen. So I'm barely ever using the mouse. But yes, actually, let's delete this. What I actually want to do is I want to Control-Shift-D duplicate all of this. Because, let's see. Because then I can have a bit more control over the color over here. So I don't want this one to be part of it. I want this detail to be in, and I want... actually, I don't even want this to be in. Or I'm actually going to change the color a bit, like this, because it's the inner mouth. So that's actually something I do want, like that. And I'm gonna change the hue of it, make it more orange-ish, like this, so that it actually matches more over here. Gonna plug this into the color. There we go. Like that. Perfect. So now, yeah. The light that's coming through is not actually getting darkened that much by... Let's see. Yeah, I think it should be fine. Are there any more questions? Not that much. Well, if you have any questions, just let me know. Especially if I go over any of this too quickly. I want this to still be kind of insightful, if anything. Okay, let's actually save, render this. So this is actually like a really important thing in shading, that you're like testing it with a variety of different lighting situations, placing lights or like little lamps by hand, just seeing how it looks. So I think this already works really well, and it's like, I don't want to add that much detail. I don't want to add wrinkles. I don't want to add like really realistic skin imperfections. I want this to be still rather simple and stylized. But the details that are there should be a reflection of how the real materials behave, like how flesh behaves like in light. That's the most important part. That sells basically the believability. But yeah, I actually see a question by Shazam. Rain training is a must-have. A lot of things are clearly explained. I'm curious about the difference between snow and rain, topology, texturing, etc. Do you plan to explain in detail the differences? It's actually a really good point. What well, thank you for the for praising the course. I put a lot of effort in, and I still think that Rain was... I made it a bit sloppy with the texturing and shading. I left it too simple, and I think some things could definitely be improved. I would like to touch up on the eyes, the eye shading, the clothing especially. I think Snow is a bit of an attempt to learn from my mistakes and just make a better attempt at making the stylized shading work, putting a bit more detail and a bit more attention to detail. In terms of topology, I went for something actually pretty different. I talked about it in the part on where actually like the topology live streams. But if I put these side by side, in Rain I went for a pretty generic topology for film. So it's fairly highly subdivided, but this is like a topology that could basically work for any character. You could like reshape this and it would still work. So there's enough loops to support basically any shape. But that meant that I also had to increase the amount of polygons there to actually support the various different shapes and details. So I think I went a bit overboard. It's a very inefficient topology, but since it's meant for film, you actually can do that. You can get away with it. It's fine. But for Snow, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to put the minimum amount of topology and amount of loops in there to support his shapes and basically all the details of his facial features, in his hands, in his clothing, only what I need. So his loops, if you like look over here, like these poles, they don't line up as neatly as with Rain. Like with Rain, you got like these really clear edge flow that's like leading into all of these different poles that are then redirecting it into different directions. And with Snow, it's not as clear. There's a lot more. There's a lot more loops that are going off into different directions and a lot more poles. But in the end, I landed on a topology that is, I would say, cleaner. It's a bit more efficient. In terms of texturing, I'm actually going way more for procedural methods. I still want to do a bit of texture painting in here, but for Rain, the texturing was pretty minimal, and some of it was based on just texture painting it. Here, like with the patterns and like some of these elements here, this is just procedurally made. Also these extra creases and stuff like that. I also wanted I painted in a bit more height maps. These stitches are procedural, and the great thing about that is you can really zoom in, and it's independent from texture resolution. It's just based on math, so you can get away with a lot more. I wonder if there was anything else. Do you plan to explain in detail the differences? Yes, I made a lot of live streams, but to be honest, I would love it if I could just make some recap videos. Those would probably not be for free though. Those would be part of the course on the Blender Cloud. But I think they would be a nice way of wrapping up the project. Really, like, here's what I learned, here's what I did differently, here's how you can approach topology, expression testing, sculpting, and texturing and shading and all of this stuff differently, and still end up with a great result. But then also, I want to add a bit of extra content, essentially. So yeah, there are going to be extra videos, and then probably the course will be finally finished. I'm not gonna add anything anymore. If anything, I would update anything that would be outright outdated, but I will have to see. I think this is already working pretty well, what I did right here. So the extra subsurface scattering in the face is like making it look more realistic. I see another question. Topology topic is something I was thinking when looking at rain topology, maybe a bit dense. Thanks a lot for your highly precise work. Thank you. Yeah, it's very dense, but it's interesting how you can actually do that nowadays more and more. It's more accepted. Even in gaming, which I think is fascinating, that like games topology for characters is getting more high poly, because sometimes it's actually necessary if you want to get like some real wrinkles in the face. Anyway, I'm gonna go back into vertex painting over here, because it's not just the face that needs some subsurface scattering. It's also the hands, the arms, everything. Since I duplicated this from the nails vertex group, it actually made these white, so I'm gonna paint this out. Okay, and then I'm gonna work more on the arms and the hands, and then basically that should be done, this subsurface scattering part. I see some more questions. Is it possible to buy one course on the cloud, or do you have to subscribe? It's only part of the subscription, sadly, but a subscription is only like €9 per month, I think like €9. And once you have 1 month of a subscription, anything on the cloud is available to download. You can like have full access. It's yours. It's actually like everything on the cloud that we provide is Creative Commons, so you can actually reuse it. So if you get a 1 month subscription, it's actually, you're getting a lot out of it. You're basically getting the entire site with no ties, no additional ties. Another question, maybe a facial rig on rain or snow could be interesting on the training cloud, even if it's not you. Thanks a lot. I agree. Some rigging tutorials would be nice, but that would not be on me because I'm not a rigger. So my focus on the course and these tutorials is really just to show the character creation process, especially for film production, give more insight on that. And that is basically stopping at the shading. Like, if anything, I could also get into grooming at some point, but that's also a part that where I'm less knowledgeable at. So, yeah, rigging would have to be done by someone else, which is fine. Okay, so with the fingers, they need more subsurface scattering than the rest. Actually, quite like a lot of light can come through them. And then with the palm, less so. So I'm gonna reduce this. Even though, like, for example, this part over here on the thumb, it's still quite fleshy. Also over here. So it's more the areas where you would have all the bones, all the muscles, all that stuff in the center of the palm where less light would come through. And especially here on the back of the hand. So I'm painting this out. I'm painting this part back in. A lot of light comes through here. And a lot more light over here on the fingertips. And then I'm taking the blur brush and just blurring over it a bit. Like that. That should already help a lot. So now, if I go into Eevee, you can see it's actually getting this red glow. That's exactly what I want out of the fingers. So I could also go into cycles. In the end, I'm going to fact check it for both render engines because I want this to work in both Cycles and Eevee. But Cycles is going to be the more important one, I think, because that would usually be reserved for the more high quality final render. And yeah, it's basically essentially the result that I wanted. So a value of 1.5, no, not 1.5, is 0.5, 0.15, now I got it, of maximum subsurface scattering is already a lot, but I think for the very thin, very fleshy areas, it's actually quite nice. So I could rotate this a bit more, see how it feels like. Although one of the things that I can't fact check that well with this HDRI is light coming from below. So I would have to do that myself. So first I want to have a bit more subsurface scattering on the thumb and on the fingertips, like that. And a bit more over here. Now blur over it. There we go. Go to Eevee. It's looking quite nice. Shazam also writes, as a user, €9, you have a huge amount of high quality content and material. Yeah, it's like, I mean, we're not focusing that much on training. It is really like the Blender Cloud is a platform where we share everything that the Blender Studio is making. Like, it's really a platform for our, like, sharing our resources, our characters, all of our film production files, and it's not meant to be like this really accurate price for exactly what you're gonna get. Like, this is, we want this to be as open for everyone as possible. We want anyone to be able to access this. So it would be weird if we tie it to a huge price tag. The cloud is just there to support us financially in the end, to help the studio, the Blender Studio, to keep making more films. Okay, so I'm gonna also paint in a bit more over here on the arms. And for that, I'm actually going to disable the mask modifier. So that's actually what's hiding all of this. So I want, like, Snow has a lot of muscle tissue over here, and I want that to be actually represented in the subsurface scattering a bit more. So all of this would get a bit more subsurface scattering. I'm gonna blur it a lot now. Also, I'm gonna disable specular lighting on my matte cap so I can actually see the values a bit better. There we go. Like that. Perfect. The back, I think, is getting less subsurface scattering realistically. Like that. Okay. Blurring this also a bit more. Actually, I think this should be also a bit darker. Maybe I'm going a bit too far. Because the black areas are already getting subsurface scattering. This is only meant to give a bit of variation. Ooh, oh my god. Maybe the brows should at least get a tiny bit of subsurface scattering. Just a tiny bit. They might be right on the bone, but they still do have a little bit of fleshiness. Same thing over here. Blur it. And then, I mean, the neck over here should get less. think that's fine. So this is what it looks like right now. Perfect. And then if I go to cycles, I think it kind of works. I think one of the things I still need to consider is darkening the skin a bit more. Something I'm constantly struggling with. But at least the subsurface scattering looks nice. I mean, this is also a very bright HDRI right now. Like, this is kind of the default one. Looks really nice. I see some questions. I'm not tagged, but I'm just going through the comments. Why is there no body underneath the clothing? I thought movies include the body underneath. Well, the trick that we're usually doing for our movie productions is to hide any geometry that we're not actually seeing under the clothing, because then it will just get rid of any unwanted intersections. So I can just add a mask modifier on this, and anything that's part of this vertex group that I called mask is going to get hidden from the viewport and rendering. So it's only, like, this is the only part of the geometry that is actually necessary. Like that. Okay. Another question: what should you recommend? To do building a strong portfolio, and what should I practice? Kind of depends on what you want to do, but I don't know. It's sorry. For my portfolio, I mean, that's been a while ago, but I did have a lot of like character work in various different styles and methods. So I was dabbling in like sculpting, just on a concept basis, and then low poly artworks for gaming, and just also a little bit for film. I also I practiced various different skills, and that's basically what landed me the job. Just the appeal of the final results, but then also just showing that I have the interest and the already bit of knowledge for various different parts of the production. But I mean, my position is more as a generalist, so it would change from job to job. It just really depends on what you're applying for. Another question: can you still simulate on top of the hidden body parts? If you mean cloth simulation, then yes. That's actually a fantastic point why the body should be kept there. If you do body simulation, even if you're gonna hide it, it can be a great collision detector. So, like a great collision object. So that's useful. Anyway, I'm gonna open the mouth. Just quickly check in here. Feel like a dentist. So I actually already like how this looks, how the light comes through here. In the end, I would need to fact check this more with renders and turntables, not just in the viewport. But for now, this is fine. I would actually like to add some more viewport colors for this. So, let's see. If I render this, the inner mouth, of course, also still needs some work. So, and that also means subsurface scattering. So for example, the tongue, it's like pretty waxy, almost. It's like a lot of subsurface scattering. In terms of specularity, I tend to always keep it at 0.5. That's more realistic. It's the default value. But I would then instead turn the roughness down to give it more of a wet look. Like that. You can also go to Eevee. I wouldn't want to make it too shiny, but I think this is fine. So 0.4. And same for over here. There we go. And then the teeth. That's interesting. I usually keep them very simple, but realistically they would also get a bit more roughness, like 0.4, same as the other objects. And then actually also a little bit of subsurface scattering. I think it's like slightly yellowish, cream color. Although I need to be careful that this is not too strong. But even very thin bones have a bit of subsurface scattering to them. So I think this is actually kind of realistic to add, but I'm not sure if a lot of people do this, because wherever you have subsurface scattering or translucency, it takes longer to render. So having no subsurface scattering here can help with a lot of headache, help relieve a lot of headache. But to be honest, I would just like to add it in here, like that. Perfect. I'm actually going to brighten up the tongue a bit, like that. Perfect. Are there any more questions? Does 0.01 subsurface scattering take as long to clean up as 0.5 subsurface scattering, or does it resolve faster? Well, I think it takes about the same time to render. Once you have subsurface scattering, it's going to produce the same amount of noise. But you can see the denoising is having a hard time. Anyway, I should continue. I'm already spending... Oh, actually only 45 minutes. That's fine. And I still have plenty of time to get into the skin detailing and ideally also the hair. Perfect. So I'm gonna just show the base color over here on the skin again. And I left this pretty simple for a while now. I'm actually going to hide the corneas again because they're causing some issues with Eevee. Like you can see how it's just like split over here and like causing some weird artifacts. I don't know why. But that's why I just leave them off on this computer. But yeah, I want to add a bit more refinement over here to the lips. I actually noticed right now a mistake that I made. I painted out the darker influence over here on the lips, but this was actually used to add these darker streaks to it. So I'd like to add this back carefully. Okay. Let's see. I have the lip detail over here. And I have the brighter skin. And then also, yeah. So this could use a bit more work. This is not a great noise texture for the brighter skin. It's really just a noise texture. It is literally just a noise texture. So let's just experiment with this a bit more. So instead, what I'm gonna do, let's see. Any more comments? Getting lots of love from India, that's nice. On the cloud, will the series be considered condensed into a short tutorial? But yes, I'm gonna make some recap videos once this is done, which should be a nice wrap up. Not exactly tutorials, but a follow-up piece to what I already made for the course. Anyway, I'm gonna try Voronoi texture over here. Like that. And I should add a mapping node in between. Just because that way I can change the scale also a bit more. Let's see. I actually need to experiment with this a bit more. I think smooth is the right way to go. Smooth F1 instead of F1. Because that doesn't have the cracks in between. Randomness and smoothness. There we go. Yes. So... oh god. I don't want this to be just noise. I want this to be noise with the illusion of pores. So that would be nice. Oh boy. Not color. Not position. No. Okay. Okay, it's looking a bit better, but so that's the alternative to this right now. I also see some more comments. Hold on, I'm gonna get to you in a moment. I know you do stylized human characters, but would you ever do a stylized animal character like a horse? Well, I was playing around with the idea of eventually doing, like, I wanted to make it part of the stylized character workflow course on the cloud to not just make the female and a male human, but also a dog. Especially, that was kind of the plan after wrapping up Spring, where the idea of the course came from. And since I made a dog for that film as well, I thought that would be fun. But I would probably not make that like an extra chapter or something of that course, but if anything, it makes sense to be its own thing. So if I ever do it, yeah, it would be its own course. I just don't know when. There's no plans for it right now. There's just ideas floating around. Okay, so you can already see this works much better than the original noise. I've just, yeah, this is the original noise, and this is the new pores. So I like this more. It looks more like skin, but it is only a base to work from. Hold on, I'm gonna save. Quickly look at my references over here. So what I also want to add is I want these pores to have a bit more size variation with some more deeper pores in there. And I want that to be not in the bump for extra skin detail, but in the roughness, in the specularity. I don't want to add any additional bumpiness to the skin because I want to keep it kind of simple. And then I would really like to add some extra like blemishes over here to the skin, but keeping it kind of simple. But overall, like you can really see all over the skin, there are these tiny pores. And that's really what I want to add here. So first of all, let's change the scale a bit more. So like 150 seems good. And then I'm gonna duplicate this. And change the scale on this to be even higher, so like 250. So what I can then now do is I'm going to just duplicate this. So this is going to be the noise, and I'm going to scale this down like this, putting the detail to 0, just increasing it slightly. So now with Control Shift right click, I can just mix these two. And I can add the noise as a factor. I hope you can see this, it's a bit small on the screen. So now what this does, it's going to mix in the noise over here as a mask to either use small or big pores. And that's gonna just add a little bit more variation. I'm also gonna add a map range over here. I could also use a color ramp, but I'm actually getting used to using the map range. Like this. Perfect. And then you can see it's adding a bit of variation in here. So that's very much the point. Like this. And now this is gonna turn into this. Perfect. And then, of course, I would like to take this one step further. And add one more Voronoi over here. I'm gonna make this really tiny. Let's try 30. No. 60. And the noise over here, I'm gonna change the scale. That. Okay. I want to try to mix these in as well. Oh, oops. Sorry. Shader editor. There we go. So now there's going to be a couple of spots where these big spots are going to be inserted like that. I'm gonna try how that looks like. I think it's not actually that good. Because that should be part of a different pass for like... Yeah, it's not such a good idea. Okay, I'm gonna do that in a different way. So I'm just Control X deleting this, then it's just removed. But I am still going to mix in a bit of noise over here. So I'm going to mix these pores with a little bit of general noise over here, like that. Just going to turn change the scale a little bit, the amount of detail ideally as well, like that. And I'm only going to mix it in subtly. 0.2. Yeah, 0.25. Like that. Now, this should add enough variation. Now, I just need to put this back into this node frame. So this is the one for the brighter skin. General skin detail. Actually, I'm gonna pore detail. That's what I'm gonna name it. There we go. Because now what I could do is I could just take this. Oh, wow. And I want to use this for the roughness as well, but I'm gonna get to that in a moment. Okay, first of all, darker skin. No. Lip detail. So, this stuff. Right. I see a bunch more questions, I think. Oh, someone wrote screencast keys. I completely forgot it for the stream. Damn it. I'm so sorry. No. So I'm gonna quickly turn the mouse size down, like something like this. Sorry about that. Let's see. Will you increase the noise texture scale affect? Will increasing the noise texture scale affect the rendering? Not that much, because only the detail would cause this to take up a bit more memory. But if you increase the scale, it's basically just repeating the same mathematical formula to infinity. So that's the great thing about noise, like procedural noise textures, as far as I know, is that they don't cause that much increase in like memory and computation time. I'm actually going to change the 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 finer one is going to be 200. This is going to be 100. Actually, let's make this 180. Because I want this to be a bit more visible, actually. Right now it is barely. And also, for that, it makes sense to finally change this over here. Yes, now it is going to be more visible. I'm going to set this to ease. It just makes the values clip a bit less. It's trying to blur it. Like that. And then it's going to mix it with the rest over here. Yes. Like that, I guess. Not quite sure if this is the right way to do it exactly. Let's see. I should make this a bit softer. Makes it look a bit more natural. But there should also be a bit of darkening in there. Well, I'm gonna get to that. Lip details. Well, it should be subtle, so this is going in the right direction. But I think I can start to add a bit more, a bit more color variation over here for darker areas, like around the nose, just because I want that extra, just for the sake of variation. It's basically only it. There we go. I'm still using a lot of Vertex colors, but it works. There we go. It's looking better. There's a new question. Did you gonna make environments live soon? Love to see you building the sets and the props. Yeah, it's kind of almost over with that. We're in the last stages of production for Sprite Fright, and the last sets that I'm building are very spoilery. It's essentially the last shots of the movie, so I wouldn't want to show that live. Not while the film is not released. So probably not. If anything, maybe for a new project. But I would have to wait and see for that. Let's see. Let's bring back the rest. Oh man. I think this is kind of working, but one of the things that I really need to do now is I need to take a mix RGB, grab, let's see, I need to grab the skin detail, and I need to grab this one, the lips detail. So now I can use this for the roughness. So the base roughness is point. There we go. 0.7, 0.68. Let's do that. Like that. So now, over here, it's going to add darkness. So the pores should be a bit more glossy. Same thing for the, well, actually the opposite over here. I want the cracks over here to be brighter. Yes. Now I can take this and plug it over here into the roughness and see what happens. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna quickly get rid of the subsurface scattering and the base color by muting the connections. I'm doing that with Control Alt right click drag. And now I can see more clearly what's happening with the roughness. I'm gonna turn the color actually to complete black. So 0.68 of a base roughness is actually not that bad. Let's see what happens if I don't add all the pores to it. This is a really nice base roughness for skin. And then once so the pores add quite a bit of variation. That's great. I think I'm actually going to increase the base roughness to like 0.72. And then the pores are really doing the job for bringing a bit more glossiness on the skin. All the other parts of the skin are more rough. Like that. Like this is the sort of stuff that I would have painted, texture painted on rain. And now I'm just doing it procedurally. And I think this is actually way easier. I have more control over it and it's less destructive, so I can make huge changes fairly quickly once I have the setup there. Now, I actually want to bring, let's see. I'm gonna add another color over here, another vertex color, and this is rough. Let's see. And I'm actually going to use this one as a base over here. Like that. Perfect. So let's go over here and just fill everything with that value 0.72. Shift K, like that. I can go into Eevee now, and I should be able to see exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, right. The values are a bit different. I wish these wouldn't be color corrected. Okay. So let's do this. So yeah, this is the base value. And the pores are adding more detail on top, as well as the lips. .85, that's the base. Okay. So I'm gonna paint on top of the nose a bit. I'm gonna make that one bit more specular. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm doing this a bit stupid right now. I'm gonna just make it a black and white mask, like any of the other ones. And then I'm gonna use the map range again to define what these values actually are. 0.75, no, 0.72. Let's do, yeah, let's just do 1. Yes, so this works much better. Okay, I'm getting pretty far with the skin, so hopefully in a moment I can continue with the hair. It would be great if this could be like the second to last stream. I would be super happy with that. Hold on. Of course. What parts of the face are actually more specular again? I mean, definitely the lips. That's the thing. So, if this is the roughness, then the lips need to go all the way to black. Because then these should appear... Let's see. Way more glossy. Like that. Okay, I think that works. Again, I got like extra shape keys over here on different frames, so I can just hop onto a different frame and I can immediately have an open mouth. So now I can just paint the inner mouth completely black on this vertex group, and that would make it very glossy. Control B. Oh, Alt B, I mean. Let's try this. Oh. I'm just gonna do it in the viewport. Screw it. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna make the forehead a bit more shiny. Not the brows though. Not that much. Then the nose, cheeks. Not the chin. And the ears also a little bit. I'm actually going to look up again on the internet a face roughness map because there's some so this is like a nice way of looking up just where usually like again the specular areas. I wouldn't say the chin, not for the like, I imagine him to do a regular shave, so it's probably very rough, but along the cheek, around the eyelids, the nose, the forehead, all of that needs a bit more roughness. The nose over here, forehead, that, and then the eyelids like that. Yeah. Especially under the eye over here. This is where I imagine it to be more shiny. But it is getting too shiny right now. I need to tone this down a bit more. So in the ear. Like that. Body roughness map. Well, actually, let's check out the hands. Because the hands also, I think, have a... I mean, I could just look at mine, but the only thing that I would do is the palms should be different. I think the palms, realistically... Oh, it's already... Wait, what is this? Oh! Right, a different vertex group is already working into this. Oh no. Right, the brightness. Is it? When is this added? I'm gonna find out. Yes. This is essentially what's happening. Let's see. Come on. I pressed the wrong shortcut. So let's check this out, see how it looks like. It's very specular. I need to fix that. But I got that extra variation in there. That's what I wanted. Yeah, the skin just looks too wet. Oh well. Okay, I have like half an hour left, and I'm not super satisfied with the roughness map. It's like something I would need to tweak more. And maybe get like a couple more influences in there. I would really like to add one more detail level to this. For that I could... hold on. Yeah, I could just duplicate this. And this, come on. There we go. I see another question. I often turn off the subdivision when texturing. Is it okay? I don't think it's that necessary. Well, it's like I only really see one issue with it. It's if there's like UV smoothing on in an odd way, you might get a different result if subdivision if the subdivision modifier is on or off. So you would need to check if your lowest resolution is basically looking the same as your highest resolution, then you can just texture in any one of them. That should be okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna try this. I'm going to paint a blurry mask over here. Vertex paint mixed with a noise map. I don't need that much detail, I think. Kind of like this. Like that. Okay, that should be fine. I'm just gonna try to use this. Let's see. I'm gonna name this skin detail. Like that. I'm gonna use this as the influence to add little dots on the skin for extra detail. Something along the lines of this. Oh wow. Like this. Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of working. This sort of stuff. I just want this to have a different scale. $35. $35. There we go. I'll just try this. So now with all of the other details added on top, I have these extra skin detail. And I would have just painted this on by hand previously. Now I have way more control, doing this a bit more procedurally. Well, I'm just gonna see how this looks like over here. Any more questions? How to bake the color? So many vertex colors. I'm gonna do that probably in the next live stream, where I bake a lot of this down, so that there can be like some just a base color texture, a roughness map, normal map, that sort of stuff. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna add this sort of stuff also to the neck and other parts of the body. Okay, I'm going to turn off the modifier here again. Yeah, I need to fix the shiny hands at some point soon. But in general, this is working already kind of good. Yep, I like it. Yeah, shininess still needs to be adjusted. I think that would also be the case if I just render this in cycles. I think it's way too glossy. But fact check that exactly. A nice thing would be to add some turntables. But let's actually get a bit into the hair. I'm still a bit on the fence if I want to remove this part. I think in the end I'm just going to delete this object right here, and I will just texture paint the hair detail on top of the skin, because it's supposed to be a relatively close shave. So I don't need this. But this I can already start with. So I also see a question: how would you deal with baking textures that have very small variations in values without losing detail? Well, I think in terms of values, like a normal 8-bit texture has all the value variation that you would need for glossiness, for height maps, maybe. For height maps, maybe 16-bit, but for colors, like everything. The only great advantage of having all the value variation in the world when doing it procedurally is that you can still tweak it without clipping any of the values. So that's basically it. I think all of this can be baked down pretty easily. So now the interesting bit, because the hair back then was actually pretty complex in a way. So first of all, I'm gonna turn the roughness way down. I had a bit of reference. I still want to make that trick that I did with rain, with some fake anisotropy and like some stylized streaks in there. But for snow, I want to at least get this. So it's like this very, what is the name, like the English term? It's like very locked hair, very fine detail, but I don't want to quite go for that. If anything, I want to go for something that's a bit more braided, a bit more following a single direction with only a bit of variation there. So this is kind of what I want to imply. That's going to be a bit tricky. especially because I don't want to go that much more in, that much higher in detail than with Rain's hair. But yeah, I'm actually going to import, like append a node. Would be great to share this afterwards, but it's a node that Simon Thomas actually made for our film production, and I love it. It's a much more improved version. It's much better fake anisotropy. Because Eevee doesn't have any anisotropy, I faked it for Rain, but it was actually quite bad. It was like a weird preview. I'm gonna ungroup this. So this is what I mean with anisotropy. So I would need a UV map, and I'm gonna call this UV alignment. So I'm gonna use that one over here. And now I'm gonna actually go to the UV editing workspace. Like that. And what I want to do is, yeah, I want to grab all of these and align them in a way so that they are, let's see. I think this already made sense. Did it? Let's see. This already kind of made sense. Yes. Only that in this case it's correct. In this case, it's actually rotated the wrong way around. So the UVs are defining a direction for the hair, and anisotropy is giving like this kind of like streaky shine, which you would usually have in for like stainless steel, but it's also very common to see in hair. It's like this sort of metallic effect, and then like the streaks that it's following a direction. And I really wanted this effect in the hair as well. And with this node group, it's actually possible. I'm also going to select the, where is it? The eyebrows. I want to give them their own material. Eyebrows. Let's see. Doesn't need any anisotropy right now. I want it to just stay like that. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so let's see. I can add this into the specularity. So yeah, now it's getting these anisotropy streaks. So this is basically what anisotropy would do if it would be supported in Eevee. Like it just would show the specularity way more along these lines. But I want extra detail in there, and just like with the skin, I don't want to do it with a bump map with implying height. I want to make it with roughness variation, and in this case I want to do it by I'm gonna add an image texture and create a new image. Let's see, ×2. I'm gonna call this snow hair streaks. Just a black texture, and this texture I'm gonna plug that into again a map range, and this into the angle. So I'm unsure. So like, wait, so what is 90 degrees? That's the thing. I think 90 degrees is like, oh, it's in radians. So, oh no. Well, I'm just gonna eyeball it. So 0.8 is probably it. Okay. Okay, so here's the thing. If I go into texture paint mode and on this texture, hair streaks, I paint a let's see. Yeah. I'm gonna adjust the brush a bit. Sphere. Let's see. Maybe constant. I want this to be as hard as possible. Kind of like this. Let's just do this. Like there's a streak going through here. I want this to appear here as a change in rotation on the anisotropy. Oh, of course. Oh, hold on. Oh, of course. I need to have a specific UV map. And it was painting on the wrong one. Of course. I don't have that much time, so I wonder if I can actually really get into this, but oh. Yes. So now, yes. So I have this this simple mask, and this can define a change in value over here, which is then noticeable as a shift in direction in the anisotropy map. So right now it looks like nothing, but it's gonna get there. It's like, it's going to then imply shifts in direction, and I can add extra streaks in there. I also see a bunch of questions. I'm sorry, I'm kind of ignoring the chat. How now you used Blender Silver? What? Sorry. How does your fake anisotropy work? That's the thing. I would maybe explain that in the next live stream, because I'm not sure. It's like some... I need to talk to Simon about this, because I think it's fascinating. It's like taking the vector for incoming coordinates and then transforming it. And it is just like with anisotropy, taking a tangent, a UV map for a tangent normal direction, and then rotating it based on that. I don't know what the dot product does, but then with an absolute node and power, and then flipping it, he gets like this shine. It's insane. I'm gonna figure out how this exactly works. But for now, let's actually just try to do this. Well, I have accumulate on, of course. That's why it had such a strange result. Yes. So yeah, this, like, at least the effect is kind of working somewhat how I imagine it to be. Yeah. These sort of fake streaks of breaking the light into different directions. Just that the texture painting needs to be way better. Gonna change the roughness. And also what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna separate these into loose parts. So now I can paint over this a bit more carefully. But I'm almost out of time as well. I only now notice that like something is wrong with the pressure sensitivity, I think. Wait. Okay, so let's just try this. It's kind of working. So this is just kind of a test of what I could do with this. But it's already pretty promising. Yeah, you can see these like streaks going along here. I see a question, how to download notes from Simon Thomas. We're gonna soon upload all the assets and like work files and just generally more stuff for the Sprite Fright Open Movie. And if there's any file with the characters in it, there's going to be this fake anisotropy. There's going to be those nodes in there as well. So that's one way of how to get it. But I'm sure like there's probably also going to be like a more curated node bundle or something out at some point. Right now, I'm just using it myself, just for this effect. So yeah, let's actually see this in comparison. Yeah, this is sort of the effect that I want. Just yeah, a bit more well painted. It's getting there, but you can see how I can like shift the direction of the anisotropy. Shouldn't make it too strong. And then ideally I can add a color ramp. Let's just do it with that. And plug that into the roughness. So that means wherever there are these streaks, the roughness increases. Yeah, I just need to paint this way better. Oh. And then I'm gonna actually change this output to be only in Eevee, because then I can just duplicate this, change this to be cycles. So I can still use this for the roughness, but for the specularity, let's see. I need to increase the anisotropy over here, like that. Yeah, I'm gonna continue with this in the next stream. I'm already going over time, but this is already going in the right direction. So the hair over here, the stylized hair streaks effect, that needs a way better texture. Way better texture that I need to paint. But overall, the skin has more detail. The glossiness needs to be fixed. Like the hand is super wet right now. And then once the hair and the glossiness is fixed, that is essentially almost it. Then I just need to bake down the textures, tweak any other stuff, and oh, of course, and then there's also the shoes. So there's going to be another live stream next week. Then I will just call it done for today, and I will see you next week.